Hello and welcome back to another Fear the Walking Dead video, and in today's video I'm going to talk about the top 10 worst villains that we have got on Fear the Walking Dead. And with a show like Fear the Walking Dead, there has been many villains, and I do have to say most of them absolutely suck. So let's go into this video talking about the worst of the worst, and number 10 is Proctor John. He barely scrapes into this list in the worst, mostly because his arc was completely ruined. There is no good aspects to Proctor John. He is in 3 episodes, he does something with a dam, and then is just blown up and forgotten about. And I can't really say much else about them, just because he's really the only villain in Fear that is just introduced and does absolutely nothing, just to be killed off in 3 episodes. So Proctor John, number 10. Number 9 is Chris, and he is borderline villain, borderline just a spoiled little kid. However, they tried to make him a villain. It was clear he was Fear's answer to Shane from The Walking Dead, and he just came off as bratty, spoiled, annoying. He's everything you don't want for your villainous character or antagonist of the early seasons of Fear the Walking Dead. He really makes certain episodes and certain scenes and episodes really hard to watch. And maybe they could have done something with this character if they let Travis go on, and maybe this villain arc would have actually amounted to something, but it really doesn't, and it's just a stain in the early seasons. And one of the only bad things about the first 2 seasons of Fear was the character of Chris and the weird storyline they gave him. Number 8 is Dakota, and what makes her such a bad villain is the flip-floppiness and the inconsistencies with the betrayal and Dakota's character. You have her be this kind of sudden villain after being this damsel in distress in the first half of Fear Season 6, and then they try to redeem her, like what they tried to do with Charlie, but more successfully, and then they turn into a villain, and then she flip-flops back into a good guy at the end. She is a very annoying antagonist. She started off being, okay, you might actually do something interesting with this character, but then she becomes a villain out of nowhere, and then she's just suddenly killed off. She is a really annoying character, just because now you see her whole story, her whole arc was pointless, and she's just there to kill off John Dory, and then to kill off Teddy, which really is annoying, because you could have removed Dakota from the story and made the back half of Fear Season 6 better, in my opinion. She just adds more problems than needed. You could have just gotten rid of Dakota and focused more on the actual villain, which was Teddy. Number 7 is Arnold, and this is another case of you have a villain which takes away from the main villain, and Arnold is this kind of secondary antagonist of the mid part of Fear Season 7. He doesn't really do anything. All he does is threaten people, and he gets taken out in a very pathetic way. Daniel just kind of feeds him to walkers. But outside of the way he dies is so dumb, this character does nothing. He is just there to be this external force to distract us from the real villain of the season, Strand. It really does feel like he is one of many issues with Fear Season 7, and that is that Fear Season 7 has a lot of antagonists to distract you from Strand being the main villain and taking all these big antagonist roles away from Strand. They give it to characters like Arnold, where he's in only a handful of episodes. He's a problem for Alicia, he's a problem for Daniel, and he sets up yet another villain with his death. He is a very boring, underwhelming, and not even antagonizing antagonist. He is just there a lot of the time, and he gets beaten by a deaf guy. He gets beaten by a very sick one-armed girl who is Alicia. He gets beaten many times by a man with dementia. This character has zero threat because he's been beaten by so many different people. And number 6 is Logan, and he is the main villain of Season 5. And my biggest issue with him is he doesn't really feel like a villain. That's the issue with most of the villains for Fear, is it feels like they're just normal characters that have just decided to have random beef with the Fear characters. And Logan's motive is understandable. However, there are many different issues with Logan. He just does not seem intimidating at all, and I just think his story is very dumb. The whole kind of storyline and big motivation between the war between Morgan and Logan, or the conflict, not a war, is just so pathetic. It's a very dumb thing. It's just beef for beef's sake. He is such a bad villain. I remember I had to explain to someone who the villain was for Season 5. And he's such a bad villain. I've seen videos where they're talking about villains, and he's just forgotten about. He is that forgettable, Logan is. He's one of the most forgettable villains for Fear. even though he's actually one of the most longest lasting villains, with him lasting 13 episodes, with a lot of villains only really lasting about 8 episodes max. So he's one of the longest lasting villains, but he's easily the most forgettable. But next, number 5 is Wes. And he is a villain for maybe 1 or 2 episodes in the back half of Fear Season 7. And his turn to villainy makes absolutely no sense. He goes from being one of the most chill kind of background characters to, I hate you all now, I'm going to kill everyone, I'm a villain. And his whole reason for him being a villain is just so that they can redeem Strand. The whole villainy of Wes is just so they can redeem Strand. And what makes it worse, it's just very rushed. It's just, I'm a good guy, I'm a villain now, I'm now dead in about 2-3 episodes. It is very dumb. And I think if you merge maybe Wes and Arnold in one character, you could have made a better villain. The problem with Wes, it has no setup, no payoff, nothing like that. He is too rushed, and it's like, we need to get rid of this character. And it's just a massive disservice to the character of Wes. Now, number 4 is Strand. And my biggest issue with Strand being the villain is that they did not commit. They had many seasons of setup, and then you had season 4 and 5 kind of getting rid of the setup from season 1, 2, and 3 and making Strand a good guy, and then 6 sets up the villainy for season 7, and season 7, Strand's the big villain, all this hype, and he does nothing. He is just being slightly ruthless and being like, you can't join my club in my tower, and everyone's fighting over this tower instead of leaving. The whole conflict with Strand is dumb. Strand as a villain absolutely sucks because they're giving all his villainous acts to other characters and making them doing it so that they can redeem Strand. They never commit to making Strand the villain. He just has this massive beef with Morgan. That's the biggest thing. Strand's villainy is just half-assed, and just because of how much setup we got for Strand being the villain, he deserves to be in this top 5 in the worst villains of Fear the Walking Dead. Just because of all that setup, and that is what we got for Fear Season 7. Number 3 is Shrike, and the whole Padre arc sucked, but Shrike as a villain was comical. She is not, like, scary, she's not smart, she is just there a lot of the time. And everything about Shrike just doesn't make sense. And you're like, how are you the leader? It is not believable that Shrike is the leader of Padre. And everything about it, as I said, just doesn't make sense. So she has to be here. But number 2 is Martha. And she's one of the few villains that actually has an okay backstory, and you can understand Martha a little. However, the execution of Martha just going around the wasteland killing people, and then her being the main villain for half a season, is just so bad and so dumb. Like, it'd be cool if you put her with a group of people, or maybe put her in charge of a group of walkers or something like that. Give her something to fight with, not with her being like, I'm just going to poison people with acid or dirty water, and that's the main villain. It is just so dumb and so anticlimactic. Like, you have the vultures at the start of the season, which are not great villains, but they're not bad villains. They're interesting. Great premise with them. And then you have Martha being the crazy old lady, crazy cat lady running around poisoning people. It is such a dumb villain, and I do not like how Martha doesn't really do much. All she really does is get herself killed by getting herself bitten, and then she rips off her own arm, turns to a walker so she can go and kill someone else as a walker. She doesn't even accomplish that. Martha fails to do everything that she sets her mind out to do, really. And I can't really say anything good about Martha, other than you can kind of understand her backstory. She has a half-decent backstory, but everything past that backstory absolutely sucks. But number 1 is Crane. He is the worst villain of Fear the Walking Dead, and easily the worst character of Fear the Walking Dead. My biggest issue with Crane is that all the same issues with Shrike. However, he isn't actually a character. He is really just a plot device and a knowledge dump for Fear's final season. In the first half, he is the mystery of who's the voice, and that's all he amounts to, other than being told the kids won't shoot for you and running off. And in the back half, he is just there to be like, okay, Madison, we saved you, and I'm going to sit here to redeem Troy, so Troy's not the villain, and then I'm going to stand and let the walkers kill me. That is literally Crane's presence in the final season of Fear, and he's meant to be the final villain of Fear the Walking Dead. I just don't even understand why Crane exists. You could have just given Crane's role to Shrike, just not have her die, or maybe have her survive a little from the bites. You already established radiation can delay the infection. They could have done something like that with Shrike, but no. You have a character called Crane who does absolutely nothing, just to be there like, okay, Troy, you're no longer the villain, I'm the villain, so Troy can be the hero and then die anyway. He's just such a bad character and deserves the #1 slot for the worst villain in Fear the Walking Dead. But this is just my list. So please tell me down below, do you agree with my ranking or do you have a different ranking altogether? I'll let us know all your thoughts down in the comments. But this is it for me today. So goodbye, peace out, and I'll talk to you later.